Alright, time for a Godzilla vs. Kong review. I actually just watched it for the second time, just a couple days of recording this. So, it's not going to be scripted unlike some of my other videos, just because I'm too lazy to write a script, and there's kind of a lot that I want to talk about, but it's more just kind of my thoughts and ramblings. So, I figured, you know what? Why not just do that? And now you can just highlight some of the key points that you want to talk about. So yeah, spoiler warning, because it's all I'm going to talk about, because there's not any really big plot twists or anything. It's pretty much what you expect, so I'll just go over the parts that I didn't like first, and don't hate me. I know this part's going to make it seem like I hated the movie. I did not. I actually did quite enjoy the movie, but there was just some stuff that really stuck out to me that really bugged me. So probably the biggest thing is all the human characters. They're all just eh. I mean, that's expected to be in a giant monster movie. That's pretty much all the MonsterVerse movies. So it's not like it's a Godzilla vs. Kong thing exclusive. But it is still annoying that we can't get a number of good characters, and we're only just limited to pretty much one for each film, which, I mean, I guess one is better than none, but still. Yeah, some of them kind of vary in their blandness. Some are just kind of there and just to move the story along, while others just really get on my nerves. Well, I guess just one. So other than that, it's not really too much to explain without going into specific characters. Uh, Basically, the biggest character that bugged me was Madison. She was really annoying in this film. I hated how she was so condescending to everyone with, oh, Godzilla's right, how dare you make such a weapon, why would you do this? You're provoking Godzilla to war. When the villain actually kind of has a good point. Because all throughout these movies, what weapon, with the exception of the oxygen destroyer, has actually hurted Godzilla, or let alone any other Titan? It's pretty much none. The only thing that can actually hurt them is each other, and obviously, usually that's at the expense of a couple hundred to a couple million lives. So yeah, I think the villain's got a point there, and Madison, she's just so irritating. I don't know. I just don't know how to express my disgust for her. Probably the biggest, yeah, I guess I just already talked about it, how the biggest thing that bugged me was how she's so condescending to everyone about how she knows she's right and they're all wrong, so. But overall, that whole subplot with just her and the podcaster and boy, I couldn't remember their names because I just don't care. Bernie and Josh, I think is what their name was. That whole subplot couldn't have been cut from the film. I don't think it was really needed. They didn't contribute much to the end of the movie, and it takes up a lot of the runtime, when they could have easily written other ways for the thing to happen. And if you know what I'm talking about, I'm referring to the alcohol and pouring it on the computer desk, kind of stalling Mechagodzilla for a sec, giving the upper hand to Kong. But other than that, I feel like there was no need for them to do that. There's either other ways that delay in Mechagodzilla could have happened, or just have Kong and Godzilla just kind of overpower him a little bit more. But, there was no need for any of them. Because a lot of it, that's probably my biggest issue with that film, was that entire subplot and all the characters involved. I just don't care, and every time I cut back to them, I'm like, ugh, just get on with it. Stop staying with them. Just get through this stuff as fast as you can. Pretty much a lot of their parts included the majority of the really cringy forced humor. It wasn't all of it, but it definitely felt like the bulk of their dialogue was the pretty cringy humor, which it's in pretty much all the MonsterVerse films with the exception of Godzilla 2014, just because the tone of that one is a lot more different. None of the MonsterVerse movies have been able to crack down on their humor style. It feels like it's trying to be an MCU film in terms of style of humor, which whether you like the MCU or not, they definitely have a nice quippy formula for their humor, and it works. I mean, it's getting kind of old now, but for the most part, I think it's a lot more effective humor than it is in here, so it is just kind of annoying to see more of that dialogue in here. Another thing that kind of bugged me was the sudden advances in technology. You go from 2014, which is pretty much the same level of technology as the time that movie was released. Kong, Vietnam, it was same technology as that time. 2019, it's a little more advanced, but it's still pretty much the same. with maybe a few exceptions, but it's really just the oxygen destroyer, which can just be kind of classified as like a special missile. And then the other one was just kind of the Orca, is what I believe it was called. I can't remember it fully, but in which it allowed them to kind of communicate with the Titans. But it wasn't some, hovercraft that can now teleport and go through wormholes, kind of like the Space Odyssey or just in space. It was just really odd to see the sudden advances in technology such as that. And then also Mechagodzilla. I feel like Mechagodzilla was actually done a little bit better in terms of keeping technology semi-real versus the Heaves. Because the Heaves, there's just hover technology, and it's very sleek, futuristic looking vehicles, which is fine if it's set in a futuristic movie, but it's still supposed to be set in a modern world. I think they say 3 years after King of the Monsters, or 3 years after the last significant Titan sighting when they're talking about Godzilla attacking Florida, so it's kind of weird to see that jump, but hey, maybe Elon Musk will prove me wrong or something like that. You never know with him. But at least Mechagodzilla, he seemed very mechanical for the most part. I think the part that kind of solidified that for me is when you see the cameras panning over Mechagodzilla and you see all the little hydraulics and pistons working, but they don't have this perfect level of shininess as you would expect in a futuristic kind of technology. Some parts are kind of rusty, and you can at least see realistic parts of technology in there. So for the most part, I think Mechagodzilla works actually better than Heaves. I know that sounds crazy saying that it's more realistic that they built this 400-foot plus robot mecha version of Godzilla instead of these futuristic flying vehicles, but I don't know, just the way that they go into the hollow earth through these teleportation wormholes, which is a lot different from I thought they were showing them in King of the Monsters. In King of the Monsters, and to a certain extent in Skull Island, they both seemed like it was more these underground tunnels and not these wormholes. I'm fine with the secret world underneath. I thought it was cool looking. I thought some of pretty much the only creatures you see of significant worth are the war bats, which I thought those were pretty cool, and the way Kong kills them were pretty awesome. But other than that, the whole teleportation thing, it's kind of in that unbelievable movie science. I know most movies, they have this science and you're willing to accept it. You're like, it's a movie, so I can buy it. But there's certain levels. You only buy that kind of excuse up to a certain point. Like in Ant-Man and the Wasp, when they just put quantum in front of everything, it just drove me insane. It's probably why it's one of my least favorite Marvel movies. So it's just kind of weird to see them all of a sudden go from these kind of underground worlds that Godzilla kind of uses to swim around to now, they're just full-on wormholes or portals that Titans can just teleport from one place of the Earth to the other, and they can be like, oh, surprise, suckers, wah! Another thing that really bugged me in this film is it seems like a lot from this movie was cut out just so they could get to the monster fights quicker. Which, it's fine, but the parts that they cut out, I feel like they would have enhanced the movie if they had left certain parts in. Like for Ren Shirazawa, he felt so wasted to me. When I saw that they had Ren Shirazawa in this movie, I'm like, oh, I didn't know Shirazawa had a son, and it could have just been a last minute, haha, here's some conflict, but, that would have been good. I think it would have been interesting to see his philosophy of Godzilla and the Titans versus his dad's, and it could have brought in a new perspective on his dad's sacrifice, maybe showing that it wasn't that good because, he left his son or something like that. Any kind of thing, even if it was just kind of generic, oh, I hate Godzilla because my dad spent too much time studying on him. Like, as lame as that would have been, it would have at least been something, and I feel as if it would have been better than just him not really saying anything, kind of hinting that he agrees with the main evil billionaire dude, but other than that, and it was just lame seeing him die that way, and you're like, well, I kind of wish that he would have been explored a little more. I mean, the actor seemed like he was doing a good job, and I just feel like there was a lot of wasted potential there. Maybe you disagree with me, maybe you think he was done super well, but I don't think so. And that just kind of goes for the whole film overall. So much feels like it was cut out, and according to the director, they have around 5+ hours of footage that wasn't used or altogether, including the footage that was used. So they have 3+ hours that we have never seen, and I guarantee that a lot of it is probably unnecessary. Maybe parts explaining the lore between the Hollow Earth, or specifically Kong's area where he finds the axe, they could have been explored. I was kind of expecting something like that. In King of the Monsters, that's one of the things I really like about King of the Monsters, is that it treats the monsters with this reverence, but it also kind of shows you some of the culture and the lore. At least enough where you can kind of piece it together. And I know parts of it are kind of explored more into the comics tying into the movies, but it was still tied in enough with King of the Monsters that you can put it together on your own. Versus here, it's just kind of this big empty throne room where it's implied that the Kongs built it, and maybe it's going to be explored in the Kong comic that's coming out. I don't remember what it's called. I know where he's going to fight the giant bat. But just seeing that, I'm just thinking, oh, cool, I want to see, maybe there'll be some cave paintings up on the wall kind of exploring it. Or, maybe we're going to have some lore behind the axe. But Kong just kind of walks in and he's like, oh, here's an axe. And he just kind of like picks it up out of this Godzilla skull. And then he's just gonna be like, oh, this is mine now. Like, oh, that's kind of lame. It doesn't have to be a lengthy explanation, doesn't even have to be an explanation, but a little more context, or even just showing and not telling. You don't have to explain everything. I mean, a lot of movies do that, and it's really annoying. Like I said, you can do some cave paintings or something like that, or imply that it was his father's weapon or something. I don't know. I was just kind of disappointed on those two things, just because King of the Monsters, I think that is one of King of the Monsters' saving graces, despite having very many of the same flaws as Godzilla vs. Kong. So it was kind of cool to see the lore. You're like, okay, all the monsters were treated with reverence. And I'm not saying that Godzilla vs. Kong didn't treat the monsters with reverence. I think they actually did. I just think King of the Monsters did it a little better, and I think that's kind of why I like King of the Monsters a little more than Godzilla vs. Kong. I like them about the same. In terms of how much I like them, I probably would give King of the Monsters an 8.5, and I would give Godzilla vs. Kong probably like half a point less, or maybe a point less, like 7 to 7.5. But I view them pretty close. And I think Godzilla vs. Kong, part of it, why I really enjoy it, not just from the fun that you can have in this movie, but also from just kind of what it stands for. With all movies now being woke, and it has to be super political, and telling, audience members of various political groups, like, oh, you're terrible, how dare you be this thing, even if you don't have control over it. It's very refreshing to see a movie just be a big, fun movie. And I think that's something that everyone has needed, especially with COVID and lockdowns and everything else that's been going crazy. It's a breath of fresh air to see a movie that isn't trying to lecture you, it isn't trying to talk down to you. It's just here to have fun. And I think that is ultimately why Godzilla vs. Kong, as many flaws as it has, I still really enjoyed the movie. So, take all that complaining and stuff with a grain of salt. Really, the only thing that majorly stuck out to me was probably the whole subplot with the sleuth detectives. Other than that, the rest of it bugged me, but it didn't really bug me that much. It's more just kind of nitpicks and stuff that I was hoping they'd do better, but then it didn't. So, but now I can move on to the good stuff, kind of having set it up. Like I said earlier, usually these movies, they have pretty much only one good human character. With Godzilla 2014, it was Bryan Cranston's character. Can't remember his name, but he gave a good performance, and it kind of sucked to see him die. Kong Skull Island, John C. Reilly's character, I think it was Marlowe. He was pretty good. He was the only good character, just because he felt like a real human being and not just some character written by people saying dialogue that you wouldn't expect. Same goes for Bryan Cranston. For King of the Monsters, pretty much Serizawa. I think he was the only good character, and that kind of carries between 2014. He was pretty good in that, and in 2019. I thought he was good in both of those, but again, I think he's pretty much the only exception in King of the Monsters. And then we come to Godzilla vs. Kong, and I think the only good character is Gia. Big part of that has to do with the actress, whose name is, give me a second, it is Kaylee Hottle. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. I thought she was super cute in the movie. Those were probably the only emotional moments, was with her interacting with Kong. Pretty much any of those scenes, they're very touching. And it's kind of cool to see this connection with a Titan that we haven't really seen in this Monsterverse, and that I can think of we haven't really seen in any of the other Godzilla movies. I may be wrong about that, but I thought it was really cool to see that connection. And she was the only good character. She probably had one of the only kind of funny moments that I kind of chuckled at, and that's the whole coward thing. As lame of a joke that was, I just kind of found, little little basic amusement in it. Don't judge me. The music was also excellently well done. It's kind of a toss-up for me because I really like the score in King of the Monsters. I think for the most part, the Monsterverse actually has really good music. With the exception of Skull Island, it's kind of bland, with the exception of one or two music pieces, but for the most part, I think all the other Monsterverse films have some really excellent scores that fit the tone of their movie. King of the Monsters, it's kind of tricky, because for King of the Monsters, I like the themes for each individual monster, with Ghidorah having the monks chanting away evil. I don't know. That's what I think they're doing. If you're a monk or you know someone who's a monk, you can kind of tell me about what it's actually about. But I really like that. And for Mothra, it's a nice updated rendition of her theme. It's very beautiful, very elegant. For Rodan, it's primal. It's got these awesome drums. It's kind of bombastic, kind of like him. And then Godzilla, it's like Mothra's. It's an updated rendition of his original theme, composed by. Hold on, I just want to make sure I pronounce his name right. Akira Ifukubi. Ugh, I know I didn't pronounce that right. You know, I'm just gonna put the name on the title and with a picture of him. That's gonna be much easier. But it was really cool to have these music pieces that definitely remind me of the classic themes in Godzilla vs. Kong. To have Godzilla's kind of old traditional theme. You can hear hints of it in the different composing pieces, and I think it's really cool. But it's not quite the exact same, because if it was, then it was just, it's just kind of, like King of the Monsters, where it's a new version. But I actually really like this. I also really enjoyed Kong's theme in the Skull Island. It was cool to kind of hear bits and pieces of original King Kong theme, which I would play, but copyright. But it definitely reminded me of the original 1933 Kong theme, with the drums and kind of the old showmanship, which I really enjoyed. I don't know if that was a reference. I'm just gonna say it was, and I can be like, haha, look at this little reference that I got. I'm really torn on the music for Godzilla vs. Kong and King of the Monsters. I think I like Godzilla vs. Kong's score a teeny bit better than King of the Monsters. Not by much, but if I had to choose one or the other, I think I'd put Godzilla vs. Kong. It was just really awesome. It's kind of the best way of explaining it, unless you hear it for yourself, which I'll put like a link or something to it. I don't know how this YouTube thing works. I'm figuring it out. Leave me alone. Another thing that I like, the cinematography was excellent. It was kind of cool to see some of these unique camera shots. I like the one when Mechagodzilla knocks Godzilla down and it appears like the camera is on Godzilla's arm as it's falling alongside right next to him. Or when Godzilla, slaps Kong, and as he's charging up his atomic breath, some fighter jets come and launch their missiles and kind of cause Godzilla to stumble, and he smacks one with his tail and it causes the camera to spin, doing a 360, and it comes right back after following the debris to show kind of where that camera had left off. So I thought that was a really cool shot. The action scenes, they were all awesomely done. I kind of want to talk about each one individually, so I won't go into that too much. I guess I'll go into the main antagonist of the film, Mechagodzilla. It's very cool to kind of see all these old Toho monsters being brought back in these new, updated ways. It's nice to see them kind of have these millions of dollars behind their development. Godzilla and Kong both look amazing. I'm a huge fan of Godzilla's legendary design. I know some people don't like it, but probably my best. And I'm not just saying that because I'm an American. Although I think some of the other ones are really cool. Kong's design, I like it. It's very reminiscent of the old-fashioned, very first King Kong, where he's kind of almost more like a Bigfoot as opposed to a traditional gorilla. But I do like that Kong in this movie, that he does walk around on all fours, kind of like real gorillas, even though he didn't do that in the first film. So it was kind of nice to see that, to see some variety between his movements. Going back to Mechagodzilla, I thought he was very well done. I don't feel like there's a whole lot to say about Mechagodzilla. Definitely reminded me of Pacific Rim with the whole drifting with him. I can't be the only one who thought of that, but it totally reminds me of Pacific Rim. So, with the whole Ghidorah skull, that is Kevin's head. I thought it was a little funny to see Kevin controlling Mechagodzilla after Mechagodzilla goes crazy and kind of kills all the bad guys. To see the least aggressive out of the three in the one head that the Fran that the fan base has been memeing and making him all super adorable. And now he's the Terminator, and he's literally wiping the floor with Godzilla at one point and just demolishing him. And the only thing that can stop him is Godzilla and Kong teaming up together. So I thought that was kind of funny. I don't think that was intentional, but just that idea carrying over from the past movie, I liked it. Design-wise, he's not my favorite version of Mechagodzilla. He's not my least favorite. If I were ranking them, it probably would go the anime Mechagodzilla, because it's just a big city and that's it. Then Super Mechagodzilla / the Heisei Mechagodzilla. Then the legendary Mechagodzilla. Showa Mechagodzilla. There's just something about it just screams classic, so I really liked that. And then finally, my favorite is Kiryu, the Millennium version. I know people are probably mixed on that one, but I will fight you. That is my favorite one. He wasn't my favorite, but he wasn't my least favorite design. I thought he was a pretty solid design. I kind of like the claw hands, although it does make me sad that he doesn't have his finger missiles. And there wasn't really any scene where he just unleashes every single weapon, so I was a little disappointed by that. Mostly just because it's kind of a tradition with the Showa and Heisei and Millennium. At one point, Mechagodzilla will just unleash every single weapon in his arsenal that he has on Godzilla. It's pretty satisfying. The only exception that you could maybe say for this is when Mechagodzilla is firing a bunch of missiles as he's charging at Godzilla, but other than that, I didn't really see that as firing every single weapon. Maybe if he was firing his laser beam too, but other than that, have a scene like that. But I thought he was cool. I thought his design was nice and solid. His powers and stuff were pretty cool. He was definitely a more melee-focused Mechagodzilla, versus all the other ones are ranged versions, so it was kind of interesting to see Mechagodzilla going up and punching and dragging and throwing Godzilla, as opposed to just firing every single missile and firing every laser blast. Now I kind of want to talk about Kong. This movie has way more Kong in it than Godzilla, which is kind of the way that I wanted it to play out, given how it ends. So Kong in Skull Island, I feel like he doesn't have a ton of personality. He definitely shows a lot of emotions, but I feel like he doesn't have a lot of personality. Versus here, I got more personality off from him. I like when he's eating the fish and he just smiles. He seemed to actually be expressing anger in this one, and he definitely seemed sad. It was really sad to see him sitting in the rain, and he's just all wet, and he's like, oh, I just want to go home. And it leads to that one really touching moment with Kong and Gia, which I really enjoyed. I also really like the part when Godzilla is near all the ships and Kong starts going crazy. He's like, get me out of these chains. He's like, someone get out of me. Get me out of here now. He just had this crazy look in his eyes. Like, get me out. I am ready to fight. I am ready to throw hands. Kind of had that crazy look in his eye if you ever seen a dog when they have that crazy look in their eye, but in a playful way. It kind of reminded me of that, but not in a playful way for Kong. It was also really sad. There's a lot of sad moments with Kong. Some intentional, some unintentional. Probably one of the saddest ones for me is when he's in Antarctica and Gia says, your family might be down there. There might be more of you. And he just sprints into the tunnel, hoping that there's more family members or more Kong species. And if you've read the comics, they briefly mention it in Skull Island, but basically he kind of has the origin of Batman, except right when he was born, his parents hid him away in a cave to hide him from all the skull crawlers they were fighting, which and they ended up killing all each other. So Kong saw his parents both killed before his eyes, only being seconds born and tucked away in a cave. So seeing that kind of reaction, probably most casual fans won't notice that, but a lot of MonsterVerse fans will. And it's just kind of be like, oh, that's really sad, actually. That he's so enthusiastic and so hoping that there are more of his species down there. Which, who knows, if the MonsterVerse continues, #continue MonsterVerse, then maybe we will get to see more of Kong's species, or maybe even more of Godzilla's species, so maybe I hope that happens. That'll be really cool. Kong's axe. It definitely kind of felt like a thing that the writers had to have in order for Kong to have a more of an advantage against Godzilla. Because otherwise, Kong can definitely hold himself against Godzilla. There's no denying that, but from what the movie shows, once Godzilla has just kind of had enough, Kong is kind of in a different league from Godzilla. I also really liked Kong in the throne room. That was pretty. As much as I kind of wish we got some kind of an answer, or even just hints to it, or more hints than we got. I like that part. It was kind of satisfying to see him sitting in a throne with the axe. Reminded me of a barbarian. Actually, between both his movies, his transformation kind of reminds me of Kratos from God of War. Because in the first movie, at least at one point, he uses the boat propeller and chain attached to it. Reminds me of Kratos with his signature blades, kind of like hooking into an enemy and pulling them towards you. And then in the newer movie, they have a nice, beautiful beard, and now they have a brand new axe. So that was just kind of comparison I noticed, and I'm sure I'll probably find a poster of Kratos sitting in the throne with his axe in a similar position to Kong. But I thought that was pretty cool. Kong, you're definitely rooting for Kong. At least emotionally speaking throughout the story, which is probably what the writers were banking on, which I think it worked. I'm a Godzilla guy personally, but you still want Kong to be victorious in a way, even if you're not necessarily rooting for him. So I was kind of hoping for. So I was rooting for Kong in that sense, and you definitely feel bad when Godzilla beats him. Major spoiler, Godzilla does win the fight. So you feel bad for him in that sense. But definitely any emotional moment in this movie, it's solely going to be because of Kong or Gia. None of the emotional moments come from any of the other humans. But I think that does work because Kong is very human-like to a certain extent, and he can express more facial emotion, I should say, than Godzilla. Not to say that Godzilla doesn't. That's probably when he does do his little smile. That's probably my favorite part of Godzilla's personality in this movie. Yeah, I feel like that's pretty much all I have to say about Kong. I do like Kong. It's probably making it sound like I didn't really care for Kong. I do like Kong. I just feel like there isn't a lot to talk about with him because the stuff you see with him, you can see for yourself. It's pretty obvious, so I don't want to go around beating a dead horse or just saying stuff that you can obviously see. Now I'll get to my boy Godzilla. I've said this in the most recent review of King of the Monsters that I just did, that Godzilla, he doesn't really have a personality. He's more the idea of balance of nature. Well, in this, he's definitely way more different. Probably the biggest example is when he does his smile after shooting Kong out of the sky. It was pretty funny to see him do his little smile, and he even kind of laughs, which I know some people, actually a lot of people in our theater, they kind of chuckled at that, me included. Kind of reminds me of in the original movie, whenever Godzilla would hurt Kong, he would kind of make his little roars and he would slap it, almost clap his hands together. So I thought that was pretty funny. So that was kind of a little nice reference to it. I also like the other reference with the tree and trying to stick it down Godzilla's throat, except now Godzilla has to deep throat Kong's axe. So that was kind of a nice little callback. Godzilla in this movie, he definitely screams, "I am the Alpha Titan." And he just expresses that, and it shows off with every scene he's in, from the first moment that you see him swimming towards Florida, or to the Apex facility in Florida, I should say. It was cool to see him just seem pissed off and really intent on finding this threat and destroying it. So I really enjoyed him in that sense, and he definitely felt like a force of nature. Versus Kong, he feels like a much more powerful Titan than your average Titan in these movies, but he doesn't seem like a force of nature compared to Godzilla or Ghidorah. Those two felt like forces of nature, versus pretty much every other Titan doesn't feel. I don't get that sense from. Some get pretty close, and I think Kong is up there, but I don't think any others actually reach that status, just because those two are the apex predators, the big hero and the big bad guy. So none of the other Titans really get to that level. Another thing that I really liked about Godzilla, Godzilla seemed like he was on crack or cocaine during this movie, which it was weird to see him move so fast. I definitely have heard complaints about that, and I can kind of see why. On the other hand, it was cool to see him just go so ferocious and just be done with Kong at certain points of the fight. He kind of reminded me of a Komodo dragon in terms of fighting style and just how vicious he was, which I always enjoy, because I am a big fan of Komodo dragons. They always just bring out the little kid in me, because they're basically the closest thing to dinosaurs. Yeah, I feel like with Godzilla, there's not a whole lot to say. He doesn't really have any emotional moments. He just is a lot more intense, and I would actually use the word scary to describe this Godzilla in some instances. I don't know, if I were Kong and I see Godzilla laughing and smiling, then you know that's not a good thing. You know you're probably screwed. Especially Godzilla swimming through, or I guess just decimating all the ships and nothing really being able to stop him, or just any attack that is pretty much thrown at him, he gets back up and, it hits them back twice as hard. It was fun to see him do that. And I guess now I will talk about the big things, the fights. I will kind of want to go over basically the three main fights that happen in this film. The first one being the aircraft carrier fight, and the second one being the Hong Kong fight, and then the third one being the team up against Mechagodzilla. So with the first fight, you can clearly see that Godzilla has the advantage in the water, and Kong really only gets away because of plot armor. Sorry, Kong fans. When it comes to the water, Godzilla, that's his home turf. He's taken down tougher kaiju, or titans, whatever you want to call them. He's taken down tougher opponents in the water, like Ghidorah. In the water, or he would have. So Kong really wouldn't have stood a chance, and Godzilla was actually almost successful in killing him. I've noticed that that humans really like to stop Godzilla from killing a titan in the water, and they're very good at it. So it was pretty satisfying to see Godzilla on his home turf and to see an actual visible fight scene in the water, and to see the advantage that Godzilla clearly has. It kind of reminds me of, a super ripped person fighting a crocodile underwater. I don't care how strong you are, you're still fighting a crocodile in the water. But yeah, Godzilla clearly won that fight, and he was clearly going to win that fight. I know I'm gonna probably get some salty Kong fans. I've actually seen some really salty Kong fans, just in comments of other Godzilla versus Kong related videos, but I'll talk about that more when I kind of talk about the winner. But it was definitely interesting to see how it played out. It was a lot of fun. I liked when Kong looked at his boat, then looked at the aircraft carrier, and decided, yeah, I'm going to need a much bigger area to fight Godzilla on, because I am not going to be able to do anything on this teeny little ship. So then he hops using one of the ships as kind of a stepping stone to clear that jump, which I thought was kind of funny. Landing on there, and then obviously he punches Godzilla when he comes out, but obviously Kong lands the first blow in that sense with the punch, and Godzilla just kind of recoils from it, and then he just slaps Kong across the face and knocks Kong down on his butt. I thought that was kind of funny seeing that power difference. And then once Kong pushed Godzilla in the water, you're like, oh no, Kong, why would you do that? No, he's got the advantage, don't put him in there, hold him up on the aircraft carrier. Not that carrier would have been able to sustain a brawl out on there, but you're just kind of thinking like, no, Kong, what have you done? And then that stare off at the end where they're both glaring at each other, that was very intense and very cool as well. The Hong Kong fight, actually I kind of want to talk about that last, because I think that's the best fight between the two, or just the best action sequence. We'll go to Mechagodzilla, team up against him. The one thing that bugged me in that was Godzilla when the way he runs towards Mechagodzilla. He runs towards him like a human, and not like Godzilla would, or how you would expect him to run. And it was just really weird and kind of unsettling to see him run like that. And Godzilla definitely moves differently than he has in past films, but I just didn't like when he ran like a human. It bugged me. I'm not sure if it bugged anyone else, but at least it did, at least for me. So yeah, I figured since Godzilla won the fight, I figured that he was probably going to get his butt handed to him by Mechagodzilla. And I was right, but I did not expect him to get his butt kicked that badly by Mechagodzilla. And the fact that Mechagodzilla was gonna perform the same finishing move to him as Godzilla did with the Mutos in 2014, I thought that was a nice little Easter egg. And then Kong comes in and saves him, and then they team up. I like the scene where they each grab an arm and smash him through a building. It's a very bar fight-like thing to do, so I enjoyed that. And then Godzilla charging up Kong's axe, so that way Kong could get all the finishing could chop off the limb and destroy Mechagodzilla very easily. I thought that was pretty cool. And also Kong's fatality where he just rips off the head, and that was very fun as well. So I enjoyed that. The only thing that I didn't like, but this is just speaking as a Godzilla fan, is I kind of wish Godzilla got a little more licks in with Mechagodzilla, but it's not a huge deal because the main thing is I wanted him to be Kong, so I was fine with sacrificing that. Like, you know what, Godzilla beat Kong, so it's only fair that Kong is the one that kills Mechagodzilla, which I'm actually fine with, and I don't get why some Kong fans are being so salty about it. Because Kong gets the majority of the action scenes in this movie. This movie is much more about Kong than it is Godzilla. Which again, I think that's how the movie needed to play out. Kind of reminded me when after the first time I had watched the film, and it just kind of confirmed it for me the second time. Now it's kind of a rock, paper, scissors thing. Godzilla beats Kong, Mechagodzilla beats Godzilla, and Kong beats Mechagodzilla. So I thought that was kind of a funny little thing. And now the Hong Kong sequence. This is probably the best done fight sequence in all the MonsterVerse. Actually, I will say it is the best done. This movie does have the best action out of all the movies, I will say that. It's nicely lit. It's nice to actually be able to see the fights in daylight, or if they're not in daylight, then they're in the bright, colorful cityscape of Hong Kong. So I really like that. That's easily the best thing this film has going for it. The Hong Kong fight, obviously, once Godzilla arrives there and does his Godzilla eat things, old Godzilla was hopping around. Once he kind of gets the signal, I don't know, that's just kind of how I interpreted it. When he gets the signal, he just fires the atomic beam straight into the earth and basically makes a tunnel for Kong, which kind of makes the whole warp hole thing confusing, but whatever. He does that, and and Godzilla is like, "Come at me, bro," as he roars down the tunnel, and Kong just responds with, "I'm coming for you," and he starts going down the tunnel and up, or I don't know how the whole inverting thing is, but once they get to each other, they show off their intimidation display. Kong kind of beating the ground like an old monkey. Haha, big funny monkey. And then from there, the scene is pretty brutal. I like how Kong is preventing Godzilla from using his atomic breath, because he obviously knows that is the one thing that he wants to avoid and not get torched by. So it was funny seeing him do that, and I enjoyed the reference with the tree once again. Very funny. The one thing that I didn't get, though, for the first part of that fight, they're like, "Oh, Kong won the second round." But they both went flying back. And yeah, Godzilla kind of was knocked out. He was definitely stunned for a little bit, but he got back up pretty quickly, as if nothing happened. And then he gets down on all fours and is looking around for Kong. So, I mean, I guess, yeah, he did win that second round, but it felt like that fight was still continuing until one of them had backed down, so I didn't really think that was round two. I thought round two was still going, but, I guess. Come at me, salty Kong fans. Come at me, bro. But yeah, once Godzilla had finally gotten some distance between him and Kong, he could use his atomic breath. Once he hits Kong, it was pretty funny to see him smile and laugh after Kong got shot, and I liked how Kong is just on the run as he's dodging Godzilla's breath and jumping from building to building and ducking under them, and he's just on the run. Yeah. And Godzilla is just spamming his breath attack. So I thought that was lots of fun as well. Pretty much all the fight scenes are fun. I can't think of one that wasn't. So we get to obviously the first one ends with the trailer shot where Kong brings the axe down on Godzilla's head, and they both get sent back flying. The second round, you can kind of tell that's where Godzilla has just had enough of Kong. And once Kong jumps on Godzilla's back after distracting him very nicely, I might add, Godzilla pulled in a shoulder flip, and I felt really bad for Kong at that point. Because Godzilla wasn't even there to fight Kong. He was there looking for Mechagodzilla. And then Kong just kind of shows up, and Godzilla's like, "Well, you know what? I guess I'll fight you." And then at that point, you can just kind of tell, you know what? I'm done with this fight. I have bigger fish to fry. And then just chomps down on Kong's arm. It was nice to see Godzilla really use his jaws in this movie on Kong, because you kind of saw it into the 2014 film, but not really. It was more just kind of like him tackling and pushing the Mutos, and kind of same with Ghidorah. Not to say you don't see him use his jaws, but you really hear him. You can really feel the power of his jaws and the crunch behind them. And when he dislocates Kong's shoulder and throws him into a building, I just physically cringed because I could just feel the pain, and very effective sound design and visuals. Oh, and then poor Kong as 100,000 tons of Godzilla comes charging in at him, smashes headfirst into a building after Kong dodges it. Godzilla just smashes through the building, doesn't even care, and then tail smacks Kong through the building, send him flying again, and then Godzilla gets down on all fours, trying to chomp Kong's feet, giving Godzilla developing a little foot fetish right there, something like that. And then when Kong kicks him, Godzilla jumps on him and just starts leaving the really deep scratch wounds in his chest. And I'm just thinking, oh, ugh. And then finally, the curb stomp to Kong's chest. Godzilla finally landed it after trying to curb stomp Kong's head after shoulder throwing him. But the moment Godzilla gets his foot on Kong's chest, you know the fight is over between the two. You know it's not going to happen. And then Kong makes it worse by punching Godzilla, and then Godzilla kind of does the move you do when you see a bug on the ground. You don't only stomp harder on it, but you rub your foot and squish your foot to make sure it squishes and you make sure you kill it, because you don't want to risk an angry spider surviving that. And just hearing the crunch on Kong's chest, you felt bad for the big guy. I felt bad for him, and I was rooting for Godzilla. And then the roar off was pretty cool. It kind of you got very Thanos and Iron Man vibes with it, of, you have my respect, Stark. Kind of reminded me of that with Godzilla, and that's why he didn't finish off Kong. Probably because he knew that Kong was going to die, but also he just didn't see a point in killing Kong, because he had shown that he was the Alpha Titan. And yeah, I know some people, I've seen lots of memes leading up to the movie, like how Kong fans react and how Godzilla fans react. And I saw a lot of ones joking how it's like salty Godzilla fans will be like, how Godzilla will win? And they're showing all this math and saying, oh, he destroyed, a meteor that was gonna kill the Earth, and he destroyed it, blah, 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 blah. And then Kong fans will be like, haha, big monkey. And then when the movie comes out and everyone finds out who the winner is, I have only seen salty Kong fans. Not all of them. I'm not saying all Kong fans are salty. I'm just saying that I have seen way more salty Kong fans than I have Godzilla fans. So I just thought that was interesting. Yeah, just don't be too mad if Kong lost to Godzilla. I won't say why I think Godzilla would win, even though I'm rooting for him, because that's just kind of pouring salt in the wound. Because Kong, this is more Kong's movie. Kong is the Titan that got the emotional development and the story development. I know you don't want that. You probably don't like that. You're like, I don't care, I just want him to win. Well, guess what? You don't always get what you want. But Kong got the more important things, and he's the one who saved Godzilla, so you can rub that into Godzilla fans' faces. And he got some pretty awesome, I'm trying to think of the Mortal Kombat fatalities with the war bats and Mecha Godzilla after decapitating both, and holding one up into the sky. I think I read it was a reference to another movie, or not to a movie, but to a video game. If you know that game, you can let me know or something. And then drinking the innards of the war bat. Both of them were a lot of fun. So that's just kind of my thoughts about the movie. I really enjoyed it. I still like King of the Monsters. I think King of the Monsters has a little more substance going for it, but I won't deny that Godzilla vs. Kong has the best action and best fight scenes out of the MonsterVerse, which is what most people wanted. And I'm very happy that I got to see it 2 times. Obviously, if I didn't really like it, I wouldn't have seen it the second time. But I think watching it 2 times, it definitely kind of helped me decide on my thoughts towards it. So, yeah, that's pretty much it. So, hopefully you liked the movie, or you didn't like the movie, whichever one. Yeah, you can explain it in the comments or not. I have no preference. Have a great day, and we shall see what will come next. I will probably do WandaVision/Pacific Rim Netflix series, unless I get bored by it, or I find something much more interesting. We shall see. Until then, have a great day.